This short think aloud will help model for you the strategies and questions to ask yourself as you read and deconstruct any personal essay. In this example, we will use Salvation by Langston Hughes, copied from 50 Essays, a Portable Anthology 4th edition by Samuel Cohen. The first thing to do when analyzing an essay is to interact with it. Jump right in and read it, or listen to it if it's an audio essay. Pause the lesson and take a few minutes to read this short essay to yourself. Now that you have read the essay, take a few minutes to think about the following questions. Can you answer them without having to go back to the text? If not, it's a good idea to reread the essay again, paying closer attention for the parts that you are not easily able to remember and answer. You don't have to write down your answers, but be honest with yourself. We will revisit these at the end of the lesson. Now it's time to pick up a pen and mark up your copy of the text. If you need to, print yourself a copy of the text so you are free to write and highlight on it. Notice in my note-taking, I noted where the introduction, body, and conclusion pieces of the essay are. I put brackets on the outside margin to help me identify these clearly. Notice also that in the introductory paragraphs, I underlined what I thought was the author's thesis statement. In this piece, it was the first sentence. In other essays, it may surface a little later. I also indicate in the margins where I think there is background information being shared, and what I think the conflict is seeming to be. Namely, the author is going to be asked to find Jesus with his peers at a revival meeting for youth. I have also identified with numbers and underlining events that help describe the steps and strategies used to help the author try to see Jesus. Finally, in the conclusion, I identified where what he has learned from the experience. You can also consider the same information in a different way, using a planning template organizer like the one here. You don't have to use this exact one. There are many variations available. Notice that the supporting points are presented in the story, but are not explicitly labeled as such. I had to infer that there were 3 different people who were trying to persuade him and were using different tactics to find their way to seeing Jesus as his Savior. The supporting evidence is presented in the order it is organized here. The final box in the organizer is a space to capture the concluding statements and the wisdom learned by the author from the experience. He expands on the suggestion about why he wasn't really saved, and explains the lasting impact that experience has had for him. He provides fresh insight and new explanation for the tears. Using this process is helpful in reading and pulling apart an essay, and it is a very similar process in reverse that can be used to help write and craft your own. To conclude, let's go back to those original questions I asked you to think about after reading the essay. Are you now able to more fully respond, now that you have deconstructed the essay structure? When I think about these, my responses would be the following. The focus event was a youth revival aimed at young sinners who had not been brought to Jesus, of which the author was one when he was about 13. The challenge for the author was waiting for Jesus to come to him at this special public event, and not being able to see him like the minister, his aunt, and peers all insisted would happen if he just willed it to. To try and solve the problem, sermons were preached, hymns were sung, prayers were said, and his peers professed to seeing Jesus, and elders surrounded him, and he was urged and coaxed to accept Jesus. The defining moment came when he realized Wesley had lied and nothing happened to him, so he too lied about Jesus coming to him so that they could all go home. The author realized that his crying later that night was not out of relief and happiness for religious salvation, but ironically because the act of lying made him a sinner at the time he was supposed to be saved, and that the show and falseness of this admission had tainted his ability to truly believe. Paying attention to the organizational structure, as well as word choice and connecting phrases such as I cried, I was crying, I was really crying because, in the conclusion, helped me to make meaning from this essay and gave me ideas about how to effectively structure my own essay next time I write one.